All right, welcome back to the Canadian Gun Vault. My name is Mark Morelli. I'll be your host for this week's podcast. I got my big glass of water next to me because I get dry doing this. For those of you that think it's easy to talk into a microphone by yourself at length and remain interesting, I got to tell you, it can be a bit challenging if I'm successful at all. I've really enjoyed doing it. I love doing it. It's a lot of fun. It gives me a chance to express myself, and certainly I'm finding something's happening. For those of you that want to know what's going on with the Canadian Gun Vault, if you haven't noticed, I'm making more appearances. I'm going out to places, opening gun stores. I love to go to the gun shows. The gun shows are a lot of fun. Especially for a guy like me that loves vintage firearms. Although, it was brought to my attention that we're due for change. I've been helping this family move a wonderful collection of revolvers and vintage target pistols. And I know the person now that's holding on to the items. It's not an enormous collection. But it's a nice one, and it's filled with vintage target pistols and really fantastic pieces. For people that love really great functioning firearms, especially from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. This is some of the best of the best. And I mean, if this gentleman, the former owner, wasn't a diehard gun lover, I don't know what is. I'm looking at his collection. I'm going, yeah, it says a lot about him. He was a complex man. There's some terrific target revolvers, with some fantastic, amazing triggers, and in terms of balance and feel, some old Smiths, that were sent to custom shops, a 29-2. I mean, for the people out there that love, Dirty Harry movies. If you don't know what a Smith & Wesson Model 29-2 is, it's the quintessential most powerful handgun in the world. And Dirty Harry Callahan, that iconic police detective from the series that became I'm trying to remember if they had 5 different sequels to it, but I mean, really an amazing character. This really angry cop that carried a ginormous handgun compared to everybody else that was on the service, which really wasn't a service back in the early 70s. It was a force, and clearly things like people's rights were coming to the attention of the police in the 70s. And Dirty Harry Callahan was not afraid to violate people's rights. That guy blew holes in people with that hand cannon. Just indiscriminately, which of course, as a kid in the 80s, growing up and having seen this movie, I remember, very clearly thinking, do police just shoot people like that? And I mean, it didn't play a factor at all in my decision to become a police officer. But obviously, I was a little misled. Dirty Harry Callahan carried this .44 Magnum revolver, the most powerful handgun in the world. And for you young folk out there that haven't seen Dirty Harry before, if you want to see a real slice of 70s cheese with a terrific twist of badass, you got to see the Dirty Harry series of films. I mean, it's Clint Eastwood when he was younger, and he was like Jason Statham kind of badass. And so he had the wavy hair, and he had that squint, and you knew he always meant business because he had that gigantic handgun, which was this old Smith. And I mean, for those of you that haven't fired .44 Magnum before, it's exciting. There's a reason why it ruled the universe as the world's most powerful handgun until the introduction of the Desert Eagle in '50. There were other powerful cartridges, like 4.54 Gasol, and there's some proprietary stuff. But the most powerful production handgun cartridge in the world was .44 Magnum. And if you've ever fired a hot loaded .44 Magnum, it wakes you up. So, guns like these, are a lot of fun. They're made even better. If you hand load, because I mean, you can really tailor cartridges. You can turn it into a .44 caliber air gun, you know, if you download it a lot, you save a lot of money too, you know, loading lead and using very little powder. And what it does is it turns this big, like big framed revolver with an action that's, you know, just wonderful. To pull back on that big, wide, spurred hammer, and to just pull it backwards, and it's like a Swiss watch. And if you download it, you can really get a sensation for how good the triggers are. And I mean, the 6-inch one balances just so well in your hand. I wish we could have the 4 and the 2-inch. It would be even more exciting. For those of you that don't remember short barrel pistols, on the pistol line, I got to tell you, fire a 44 Magnum with a 2-inch barrel and some hot loads, and like you're feeling like you're right back into like 460 Smith & Wesson Magnum territory. Like, I mean, it really barks. So I mean, to have a gun like that, you know, and to, you know, be able to buy a gun like that for, you know, under $1,000 is really a steal. You know, it just offers such versatility, and, you know, it came from such a great time period, the 70s. And I mean, that's you know, that's another thing. You know, like you can't help but examine things like, you know, the dates. Yeah, you look at some of these firearms, and like, I mean, that revolver was from 1972. You know, today I had a young man ask me about a shotgun, and I happen to know the family has one for sale of the type that the young man is looking for. And he contacted me on the Instagram, and I gotta tell you, I love you guys when you message me. It's always fun to hear from you. I love getting back to you as fast as I can. Sometimes I can't, and I'm sorry about that, but like it's, you know, it's difficult to keep up with the photography and the appearances, but I love doing it because I love meeting people and talking about guns. And you know, going to the shows is fantastic. It's really been flattering to have people recognize me. You know, I would never suggest to you that I'm ever going to be a big deal, but it's kind of nice to have people say I've seen you, you know, and shake my hand and thank me. You know, I say that without ego. Like I love, you know, I love hearing that I'm doing something right, if I'm doing anything at all well in all this. But I've had a lot of fun doing it, and you know, so I get this young man that contacts me. He's asking about this Wingmaster. It's a Remington 870, and I happen to know where there's one for sale. And you know, one of the cool things about doing this is, you know, occasionally I come across these things, and so, you know, I do a little bit of research on the serial numbers, and I figure out that this gun is from 1970. And I mean, it's got some nicks, you know. It's not like a brand new gun. You know, some guns, some people like, you know, really take care of their guns. This one, you could tell he may have walked through, you know, the bushes with it a little bit. So it's got a little character. Nothing bad. I mean, it's still in great shape. And you know, I know the family's asking half of what it would have cost new. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm thinking it's from 1970. You know, and I'm looking at the bluing, and it's really nice. And to have this young man make inquiries about it, you know. To know that he was going to be getting it for his girlfriend. Like, I mean, wow, like that's, you know, that's a great relationship. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that argue that giving your spouse a gun might not be a bad idea, you know, or a good one perhaps. You know, but it really screams out trust, you know, between couples. You know, I see a lot of firearm couples now, and it's really cool. You know, to see them together, shooting together, you know, buying each other guns as gifts, which I always thought was really a fantastic expression, you know, of trust. You know, when you get a couple saying, you know, I know you want to go, you know, trap shooting all the time, so I thought I'd get you your own. For people that don't understand guns, I bet you it looks kind of weird. It's like, you know, what did your husband get for you this Christmas? Well, he got me this CZ, right, Shadow 2. And you know that there's a neighbor somewhere going, what the fuck is that? And you know, to imagine, you know, a place where all these numbers are thrown around and everybody, you know, kind of understands what the other one's talking about. So there are these communities of people that know guns. And, you know, the other day I'm in a store and I'm making kind of an official CGV requisition. So I'm you know, I'm having a good time, and I'm ordering up some things, and I'm, you know, keeping kind of busy. And, you know, I explained to the guy across the counter from me that, you know, I've run this company called the Canadian Gun Vault. And he says, oh yeah, you know, and he didn't seem spooked. And I looked at him, I said, you ever fire a gun before? And he looked at me and he was like, oh yeah, I have guns, right? And I love him. We have this great conversation, great guy. And, you know, I really enjoyed working with him a little bit and, you know, talking with him. And I got to tell you, like, I stepped outside with him and I was still talking. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would accuse me of maybe talking too much. You know I've accused myself of that many times. But like, you know, I'm out there talking with this guy and I realize he gets it, you know, like he's one of the team. And, you know, I'm just more and more every day, I'm running into these people and they're great people, you know, and you got these husband and wife teams, you know, they shoot together. It's fantastic to watch, you know, and I hate to think that somebody out there would want to wreck that, you know, and I'm sure they would argue that they're not trying to wreck their fun. They're just trying to make sure everybody's safe. And I mean, that's what you're going to hear a lot of. You know, this is all about safety, which is an absolute crock. It's about paranoia. It's about people on one side of the spectrum so freaked out at the idea that you might be a responsible person, that you might actually get government qualified, certified, safety trained, and you know what the hell you're doing with a gun if you need to use one, and you know, for whatever reason. I mean, I don't care if you have to go out and, you know, plug a waterfowl, you know, if that's your thing, fill your boots. I don't begrudge any of the community, you know, for enjoying the things they do. Hunting is really not my deal. For those of you that know me, I don't I don't hunt. I actually held a valid hunting license for, I don't know, whatever the period was, like 2 or 3 years, you know, and I mean, I never went once. I have no desire to shoot an animal. You know, could I do it? Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was young once, you know, as a young child, I grew up. And I remember I got myself a pellet gun. And I remember shooting a bird and thinking to myself, well, that wasn't right. I mean, I can't eat it. So I brought it to my grandfather, right, who was this northern Italian mountain man. And he thought it was a great idea. So they had quail that night, as my grandfather would put it, at my grandmother's house. And so, like, I mean, at a young age, I had demonstrated that I could hit things, but I didn't necessarily want to shoot animals. And there's really nothing wrong with that. You know, a lot of people get down on the hunters, and you're like, oh, yeah, I shoot guns, but at least I don't kill anything. Well, you know, there's a huge argument that, you know, somebody else, you know, kills the animal for you, and maybe the way they do it isn't the best way. You know, like anytime you move things in volume, it's probably, you're not going to get the care and attention that you should get. You know, like I eat meat. I love meat. I've seen people doing the vegan thing, and it's just not my bag. I require meat, and so, you know, for somebody to go out and actually, you know, kill their own meal, I got a lot of respect for those people. I do. You know, like, I mean, I'm not in a big rush to gut a deer or skin a deer, and you know, I've seen my fair share of gore in my years of policing, but you know, I really don't feel the urge to go out there and shoot anything, although there is something attractive in it. And for those of you that have ever been over to a friend's house and had venison, right, or like you know, bear sausage or stew, oh my god, like I had bear stew at Bugsy's house one night, and man, you get a fresh loaf of bread and some good bear stew going, and you're like in heaven. And you know what, again, I have nothing against bears, but I do think it's entirely possible that man has been hunting bear for a long time. And you know, the fact that we eat chicken and fish out of the grocery store, like, I mean, you know, there's some people out there that still want to eat you know, eat what they kill, and I totally get that. And truth be told, they feed right back in to, you know, preservation of the environment. You know, a lot of people get down on hunters and get angry at them and say, "Oh, how could you be so cruel?" You know what? Man was hunting animals long before supermarkets like, you know, Fortino's. You know, the supermarket with a heart. I think it's entirely possible that, you know, if it's government approved, so they keep track of the numbers of animals that are out there, and they don't want them starving, so there can't be too many of them. And in the winter, food gets scarce, or, you know, so they issue these tags to the hunters. I mean, this is my understanding. I have a very vague understanding of hunting, but you know, I do believe I know the basics. But they get these tags, and they pay money for these tags, and that tag allows them to shoot, or, you know, use a bow, or I don't know, jump out of a tree and stab it with a spear, whatever it is that they do to hunt. They have permission from the government to do it, and so they do it. And you know, And as long as they're doing it in, the most humane way, I can get behind hunting, because the money generated from the tags goes right back into preservation of the environment. And they're really kind of like the unsung heroes of the environment. Like, I mean, people really get down on the hunters, and yet they're the single largest reason that, like, we're still in sort of balance. If people weren't hunting all the time, like, who knows what could happen to, like, the ecosystem's natural sort of state of balance. So the hunters play a really important role in maintaining balance. And I mean, since not everybody wants to go out there and do it themselves, I suggest we appreciate the hunters. They have their art, covering themselves with the urine of another animal. I don't, to track these things. I mean, they go to great lengths to find spaces where they, believe that they can have a successful hunt. And so there's a lot of effort that goes into it, and skill sets. You're not sitting in a bench and shooting at a stationary target. This thing is moving. It's three-dimensional. You're moving over terrain. You have to steady yourself in, something other than a desk, which is why I constantly tell people on the firing line, like, come off the bench. Once you get used to hitting, the 6-inch or the 8-inch gong at 100 yards, move a couple of tables, get down to one knee, and, fire a couple off the bench. Because it's really important that you be able to do that. If you're ever out in the wild, there are no benches. So, there's so many different skill sets that go into hunting that I can't help but appreciate. I had a good friend of mine. He hunted for 20 years, and I never went with him. Very skilled hunter, and, clearly successful in many ways. Like, people would come to him for advice, and he knew what he was talking about. And to have a group of people out there like the hunters, and to exclude them from the fun of using modern firearms, I don't think that's right. So what I'm going to suggest is this, and this brings me full circle to where I started, and I tend to float off into tangents. For those of you that spend any amount of time listening to me, coming full circle, I was at this gun show, and I thought, you know what, there's plenty of hunters here, and there's plenty of hunting gear, and I think we gotta get the black rifles out to the shows. They're there. You just don't see them many. They're sprinkled in. So what I'm gonna suggest is maybe we organize some kind of event. It'd be like the CGV gun show. I don't know. I would like to just call it the gun show. And definitely make use of the clearly established success, because it is, that Monica runs. I'm not sure if Monica's got a direct hand in all the shows, but I know that she's got a high degree of involvement, because I see her at all of them, and I believe her husband was very big on organizing it. So I'd like to see people kind of stepping in to help a little bit, and I'm going to offer the CGV's cooperation, because it would be her show to work with her. But I would love to organize an event where we get the black rifles out, for people to see and kind of handle, and in a secure environment. And that might not be the usual venues. So I'm going to approach, the people that run the gun shows, and I'm going to see what they'd be interested in doing if we could hold it at a different venue. Just shake things up just a little bit. And if she's not opposed to it, and the people involved aren't opposed to it, I'm certainly not going to step in and try and squash anybody's toes. But I would ask them if they're agreeable to the idea of taking it to a different venue, and maybe opening the gun show doors to some of the modern shooters and their gear. And I'm sure everybody's seen it all, but it would be nice to see us together in an environment with both the hunters and the target shooting crowd, and the vintage crowd, and the tactical crowd, and I'd like to see everybody from every discipline there. I want to see Pete Durant. That man, he runs the metallic silhouette shoots. Can't wait. I can't wait to spend a little bit of time talking to Pete about this, because he's done such fantastic things with metallic silhouette shooting. And for the people out there that haven't tried it yet, they line up these chickens and pigs in rows at Galt. and in rows of 5, and there's 2 rows of 5 in each box, and you start at 25, you go to 50, and then 75 and 100. You're shooting these pigs that get progressively bigger, but it's challenging. But it's nice to see the pig go flying when you hit it. So you hear this loud ding, and the thing goes sailing into the box. And metallic silhouette's a lot of fun. It's had kind of its life maintained by this wonderful gentleman. And he's done such great things for that discipline that I want to see it flourish. I want to see it continue. I know he's got family and help. Love to step in and give them a hand with that. And so I find myself at these gun shows, and I can't talk to everybody sometimes, and it's tough because I gotta apologize for the people. When I have trouble with names, if I've only seen you once or twice in the span of a few months, having like tens of thousands of people, on the Instagram, I get a lot of questions, and I love answering them, but it's a hard time juggling the names. And then people have real names. They have their names on Instagram, so I look at people when they introduce themselves, and I kind of say, well, what's your Instagram name? And I love meeting them. And if I forget your name, if I see you a few weeks later, or please forgive me. Like I'm not trying to be an ass, I swear. It's I used to say this to my father. Police officers used to come to me, and they'd say, "Your father can never remember my name." And and my father was a terrifically social and certainly a public man and a civil servant. So he met a lot of people, and and guys used to come to me and say, "Your father can't remember me." I've met him like 3 times, and they kind of shrugged their shoulders, and I felt bad. And I would always say to them, you have to remember one of him. He has to remember like 800 of us. And I mean, shit, he can barely remember me sometimes. So like, he meets a lot of people. Not making excuses, but I mean, it's tough to keep track. So if I'm ever out in public and you've met me more than once, if I don't remember you, I'm really sorry. I would apologize horribly. It's difficult sometimes to keep track, but I'm getting used to some of the faces that are coming around more often. And I gotta admit, just some fantastic people hanging around in the Canadian Gun Vault circles these days. I've met some like terrific couples, really cute couples, young couples, and ones that are very much alive. You could see it in their eyes, and they want to enjoy themselves. And these people have chosen firearms, to enjoy, and to the detriment, because I'm not sure exactly where we're going with the latest announcement from Ralph Goodale's office. I've heard that he's announced, hot on the heels of the Las Vegas shooting, that there is going to be some new form of legislation. All right, don't worry, we're going to enact something by the end of the year. Well, that's fantastic. Wait till there's a mass shooting to make that announcement, Ralph. Appreciate that. Your timing is impeccable. I wonder why. Well, could it be that maybe you've amassed a committee, right, that really don't like guns, or are, at the very least, directly tied to organizations that don't like guns, and a couple of players here and there for our team, but like grotesquely outnumbered, and I'm sure that it won't take much to take a girl that's only really connected to one discipline that I know of, and convince her that another discipline is not wanted. And even within the fire community circles that I travel in, there are divisions, and I want to see those divisions break down. That means for the guys that spend a little bit too much time over the handgun range, maybe you want to grab a trap gun. Get yourself that Wingmaster. Not to sell on that one, but I mean, it's a nice gun. Here's this Remington 870, and it's got this buttery smooth action. It's made in this fantastic year. It's in 1970, and it's got these chinks and pings, a couple here and there. Nothing, nothing major, nothing that would make you go, it's all messed up. But the kind of thing though that clearly it's got a little bit of character. And you take a gun like that, coming in, somewhere around the $500 or $600 mark, you can have a lot of fun with that piece. And to spend, a little bit of time at the trap range wouldn't hurt anybody that spends maybe too much time shooting like long distance rifles. Try another discipline, cross some barriers. Too often, people spend too much time getting good at one thing. Try and be good at everything. Try a little bit of everything. You might be surprised. Metallic silhouette, blow your mind. I can't wait to make a public announcement that you got to bring out like your carbine. You're gonna dig this, right? It's a lot of fun. It's challenging, and it's not expensive. Like $8 to shoot 40 targets. Pete runs a clean show, and it's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see it flourish. We're gonna have to definitely spend a little bit of time, talking to Pete about how that sport might be kept alive, because it's a really great one. So I find myself thinking while I'm at this gun show, let's see if we can, make like a really fantastic gun show and make like a public announcement. Welcome. This is the firearm community. These are our guns. Make a public announcement that you can come see these things. And the public's going to be a little scared. They'll see some things they won't like. They'll, if we put on the display that I hope we will, I'm sure there's going to be some people that will be very interested in everything. And so I think it's up to us to kind of, fill them in and to show them that we're good people, and to do it on a much larger scale than has been done so far. Most of the public doesn't really have a bad feeling towards guns or responsible ownership of guns, but because they've never seen them, never spent any time with them, to educate the public. Back to Dirty Harry. Like people believe the movie magic. He pulls the trigger, the guy goes flying through plate glass. He launches the guy 8 feet through the air. That's not the reality. There are a lot of misconceptions about the firearm community I would like to see dispelled and myths debunked, that we are not a bunch of redneck drunken idiots. Let's show them that there are people from all walks of life, of all character, of all ethnic backgrounds. I mean, it is the most diverse, interesting, fun, down-to-earth, group of people I've ever come across. Why on God's green earth any government in their right mind would want to further restrict these great people while doing nothing to combat the crime they claim that they're going to get rid of? Why they would attack these good people is beyond me. So I say we run an event where we show the general public that we are good people. And, to have, people at the show, it'll have to be a secure event. We'll definitely have to, get organized to do this. But I would suggest that the people from the head groups contact me. I don't care if you do it on Instagram or if you contact me via the Canadian Gun Vault Inc. at gmail.com. It's a good way to get a hold of me. But if you can contact me with your ideas and or submissions for the greatest gun show I would like to see put on. I'd like to see people put time into their displays. Let's show the general public that we really, really love these things, and they shouldn't be in a big rush to take away these things we love. No more than somebody would ever want to see, my next door neighbor's golf set be suddenly removed from his being, in the house. The idea that the government could step into your life, potentially, and take things without cause or compensation is not an idea that sits very well with this generation. And I think the government knows it. I'm hoping that we can reach an arrangement before things get too out of hand. There's definitely a lot of excitement going on in the world right now. People are a little agitated. Not seeing a lot of good decisions being made, by government. I'm certainly hearing a lot of poorly made decisions being announced again and again. I really do suggest that people watch the parliamentary sessions. And pay attention to, some critical players. If you're in the firearm community and you want to support people that are behind us, definitely Michelle Rempel. Love Michelle, love to hear from you. I'm not, I'm not thinking that it's probably a bad idea at this stage that we have a conversation face to face. So I'm willing to take a drive to Ottawa. I'd love to sit down with Michelle Rempel and discuss, some of my thoughts on the firearm community. I'm sure that other people have, and I think that that's important that everybody get in, their version. If Michelle Rempel would set aside just a little bit of time to speak with me, I would really appreciate it. I would tell you to contact her, to let her know that it might be a good idea that we sit down and chat, but I don't want to flood her inbox with a ton of mail. So perhaps if a few select of you would be kind enough to maybe suggest that she do that, I'm going to reach out to her as well. I would love very much to sit down with Michelle over the course of the next few weeks and just get a sense for what's going on up there. I'm interested. I'm sure everybody else is too. I would love to just have a chat with her. If she wanted to go shooting, I would take her in a heartbeat. And I would show her how the Canadian gun vault does. And you know what? And that's not machoism. Like, I mean, I have no interest in showing her how big any pair of mine are. Just to get her out and to have some conversation and to show her what I enjoy about it, and just have some discussion. If I could do that, I think I'd be really happy. So I'm gonna make the effort, just so you guys know. And hopefully, I know she's a very busy woman. She can make just a little bit of time. If she can, I would be very appreciative. Anyway, that's about all the time I have tonight for this week's podcast. I want to wish everybody out there a very happy Thanksgiving. For everybody in America, yes, we have Thanksgiving in October. Definitely going to be spending some time over the next couple of days catching up on some reading and a few things I got to get done that like living. So if you don't hear from me for a few days, don't get panicky. I'm going to be taking just a little break from Instagram to get a couple things done, and then I'll probably be back before you know it. Anyway, I'd love for you guys to get this one around. So if you could spread it around on the social media. I'm really loving the idea of growing again. Just before I finish here, I think it's important to note that the Instagram page has grown to over 52,000 in about a year and a half, I guess. And that's a big deal. I never really thought about it that way, but I'm getting people that are telling me that. I mean, it's Instagram. People are sitting there saying, "Well, it's a bunch of 13-year-olds." It's not. I'm finding that there's a lot more people in that 25 to 45 category. It's a great place to watch what we do, and certainly the photography is there for you to enjoy. I've gotten such a great response with the Instagram over the course of the last year. I love doing it, but it is a lot of work. It's more than just taking photos. In writing things, there's a lot of traveling involved, and it's kind of crazy. But I really love doing that. But definitely check out the Instagram if you haven't already. We're on YouTube as well. We've been putting the podcast up on YouTube, but there's a lot of shooting videos on the YouTube channel. If I'm finding that it's weird. Sometimes you get Instagram followers, and but some people are strictly YouTube followers, and it'd be nice to see everybody from the podcast going over to the Instagram and checking it out if you haven't done that already. Putting this out there into Reddit. I don't spend any time on Reddit. I don't tweet. I thought Instagram was a huge jump. I was a Facebook guy, and MySpace before that. I don't know if you guys remember MySpace, but I mean, it was, I was kind of a late player in the game. But definitely check out what we're doing on YouTube if you haven't already. And I guess we're on iTunes and a few other different platforms now. Loving the idea of keeping this thing going. So it'd be great if we grew. So if you can spread it around to those places, in the gun forums, I would really appreciate that. If you're a member of any forum, let's start to spread the word. It's not about my ego. It's about wanting to have our voice grow as a community. I really do believe that social media is going to be the vehicle by which we really get it out there. I mean, everybody's watching it, so why not make use of that vehicle? to get the word out that we're doing good things and that we're putting the firearm community's best foot forward for the public to see. And guess what? They love it. And if we can continue to gather their support, we'll have a lot more luck come next election season. And if you don't know my vote already, I'm telling you right now, it's conservative, 2019. We're taking it by a landslide. So, tell all your friends, the Canadian Gun Vault.